Hello, welcome everybody to the Joining the Dots Startups Network. My name is Carl, and it is my great pleasure today to be welcoming Raj Muppala from Haix. How are you doing, Raj?
No, I'm good, Carl. Thank you very much for introducing me and joining us today. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Listen, we're going to talk about some very interesting topics today in the realm of artificial intelligence, which I've been more and more immersed in, and I know you've got some interesting stuff to share. Just tell me a bit about your own personal background and how you got into AI.
Fantastic, definitely, Carl. So I worked in the corporate life for over 18 years or so, working with different enterprises like Deutsche Bank, HSBC, and Shell and Hitachi. I've worked on big data programs and analytics for a long time. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working on AI, especially at these companies as innovation lead. And what I've seen the biggest problem for most enterprises was that, okay, they are doing great jobs, but actually the infrastructure, the frameworks were not available for them to build AI quickly because not having availability for the startups used to. And this actually led me to start Haix.ai to actually help our enterprises to have a scalable AI platforms with explainability so that they can able to use it and also they can able to consume it in their own business applications.
Okay, so give us an extra layer of, I know, people are familiar to some extent with AI, but some of some of the core things that you're using, I know we want to make this sort of accessible to people in terms of, what people are used to working with data and so on. What is it that AI, and maybe you want to introduce perhaps natural language processing, because that's one of the elements you work with. How is that doing things differently from how they've been traditionally done?
Yeah, definitely. I think for sure, obviously most people know what AI is, but yeah, for sure, I think if you look at the data transition, where we have been, where we had from 2000 to now, I think there's been exploding of data for sure. And I think AI is really very good to understand some predictive models, to understand and classify the data, whether it could be like, we all know that Amazon's classification model, like, like you buy something, there's a recommendation happens. That's a classic example of AI. Netflix recommended model, and we've been actually the kind of users of all the AI tools, like all the big companies are using it. And especially when you talk about NLP, natural language processing, as it is a text data, whether you talk about Apple iPhone dictate when you type something, the next recommended I will come in. So these are the kind of real examples of an NLP, which is I was looking at your text data, like the data which we type, and there's so much of text data these days, right? Because obviously humans, it takes time for us to read like thousands of tweets or maybe thousands of Facebook data posts, right? This is where AI NLP can able to look at the data quickly, find out, whether it's a good sentiment, bad sentiment, whether classify data, whether it's actually, think like a Netflix model, right? They have a lot of video categories and tags. They do the same thing. So these are the kind of practical examples where AI NLP can be useful with machine learning.
You mean within Netflix, they would have a massive archive of content and it's able to look through all of that content and make recommendations. If you like this, you'll like that.
Exactly. That is again looking at a recommended system model where they have a massive list of things based on your user preferences. They actually look at whether it's a comedy or maybe just a drama or whatever you watched it. And again, you're talking about one-to-many combinations, right? Doing it with a traditional model, it's very complex. That's what AI can able to understand with the deep learning patterns. Like, okay, these are the things which system the person has used before, and based on that, they have suggested opportunity, like things for him or maybe her.
Okay, and I think, the way I work is always liking to give people concrete examples, and something which makes all these things less intimidating is what's some practical sort of business applications. You mentioned some of the more sort of consumer facing things like Netflix, and being able to, we all know, yes, there's lots of data out there, but give us some examples of how businesses are using the ability to get, let's say there's lots of data out there, humans can't process that enough, so we're suddenly being able to use faster computing processing to be able to spot patterns and understand and process a lot more data. You're then, I guess, training that data to understand what's a good meaning and a bad meaning, and then how does that apply in the business world? How you
So
find?
definitely, that's really great point. Really, as a matter of fact, right? So if you look at any enterprise, like an example, whether it's a bank or maybe insurance company or maybe enterprise like an FMCG brand like Nike, an example. So what happens is like day in day out, people like we all talk about the brands in Twitter, Facebook, or maybe Instagram or Reddit or different channels, right? So what happens is like obviously when the customer facing teams within the institution, they get a massive load of all the comments going on each day, right? This is a really obviously they can have human workforce to look at all this, sorting out which has been really good, which has not been bad. And it's a good, but actually it's not a good usage of, basically our humans time to actually spend like hours on finding out the information, right? This is really very useful to actually find out using AI. Again, as I just briefly mentioned about NLP, it will sort out all the information from you for you. An example like from Twitter, could be from Facebook, all the kind of, could be thousands and millions for a company. And then it will classify whether it's you're looking for any specific patterns, or whether it's you're looking for emotions, or whether you're looking for sentiments, right? I think this is so valuable for any enterprise now, even for startups like us, to understand who have been talking about us in LinkedIn, who have been talking about us on Twitter, whether it's a good signal or a bad signal. This is important for any brand right now. I would call as a brand reputation, and sentiment will be a big driver, right? We all know how it actually impacted companies all the way from in Reddit for GameStop, how it changed the whole situation for that company, like meme stocks. And it's kind of impacting pretty much, I think, most companies these days. I think it's so vital for sure, like you said, Carl, that for companies to stay ahead and look at these insights quickly so that they can able to look at their brand reputation and mitigate risk and position there as well.
Okay. How about, I know we talked about this earlier, you were happy to show some ways that this works. I remember a long time ago you showed me, and I'm very visual. I just think it's amazing when you can actually just really understand this from that point of view. Do you want to just do a quick screen share and let people
Yeah,
see?
yeah, definitely. I'll definitely do that now. So I'll go ahead and start now. If you see my screen, okay?
Yeah.
So basically what we build is like a very rich user interface so that people can search about any company or any topic quickly, right? An example, let's pick up one of the big bank in the UK. You search about HSBC and it automatically will give the right recommendations for you. This is the news. This is the Twitter handlers. You can pick up HSBC UK and Facebook handler and Instagram, Reddit, and obviously YouTube. You just do that in real time. Our technology can able to fetch all the information, could be thousands of tweet posts and Facebook and all the things. Everything is unstructured data, and it will process it in microseconds and actually get everything like AI metrics like sentiments and also like clustering and classification. Like this an example, you can really see right away the worldview of what's happening for this brand, especially HSBC. And you can see there are 29 tweets in London. There are obviously customers like you and me. They're talking about their issues, and we have a sentiment value there. People can right away go and find out, what actually, the problem is, so that they can act right away rather than going through manually all the tweets. And they have this is kind of very, very, very useful for organizations to find out right away, like red spots. Basically, you can see, what in Birmingham there are people waiting, and obviously this is all from as of yesterday and today. And obviously there are so much metrics here. Like an example, the Facebook sentiment has been positive, Reddit has been negative, and Twitter is just positive, and articles is neutral. So you can really see the big picture of how each platform is performing, because each is different, and they have to keep an eye on what's happening, and actually looking at the sentiment trend where it's actually moving up and down, looking at how this kind of hotspots are there for the company in terms of the news. And also from there you can navigate much more further in terms of basically if you look at Twitter an example, you can see the influencers, who are the top influencers for the brand right now, who they're talking about it, good or bad. They can able to see them. They can sort out by the sentiments right away, like the negative sentiments, or maybe where they're coming from. And like most influencer posts as an example, because if you don't have that, they have to sort out all this manually. Like I was explaining, there are like hundreds of tweets, right? Example here. So this is where our technology can able to do it very quickly. Likewise, they can see different things about the volume of tweets. We categorize the positive, negative, and neutral, and the followers timeline and everything. Again, they can check a lot of things about in Facebook. Again, they can see how they're trending. Likewise in Instagram, again, they can see because each platform is different the way they connect, and this is where you can see all the things, everything in one go. And Reddit, again, Reddit platform, also what people are talking about as well. So basically, that's the gist of what the technology can do, really to help decision makers, to the analysts, to understand what's happening about their brand, and also they can monitor this for their own vendors, suppliers, so that they can able to mitigate the risk or maybe look for kind of reputational bad signals quickly.
Okay, and you were saying, maybe let's go back to the video again, but you were saying about how what makes you a bit different in terms of how you've trained the data sets, basically. So if somebody was trying to do this themselves, instead of working with the kind of way that you've already set some of this stuff up? Just how does that work?
Yeah, so in terms of our AI, basically we've been benchmarking our data for a very long time. And actually we've been training our data for over 500,000 records. And actually we've been benchmarking with the big providers like Google and AWS and looking at optimizing obviously could be sentiment, emotion detection technology so that to see how this technology can able to work on different data sets. Because if you look at a bank, you'll see a different kind of text. If you look at a sports brand, you will be kind of see different kind of text. We've been actually looking at different kinds of data sets so that the model can understand a lot of different things, and also it's naturally it will be good for the model to actually predict at good accuracy, and we're at the accuracy of around 85 to kind of some examples close to 90, which is also what you get it also from Google and Amazon as well. And we're constantly also again improving because it can never be 100%, but this is where that's a distinction about uniqueness about some of the things.
Okay, one last comment then. One of the things with AI is obviously that sometimes these algorithms are making calculations and people are unaware of, it's getting more and more complicated, isn't it? So it's more and more difficult to understand the logic and the process that a computer or many computers are going through in order to come up with certain decisions and insights. You describe explainable AI. We know the word transparency and we know the word black box. When I hear the word black box about AI, I know transparency is potentially an alternative to the black box. Can you just explain a bit more about what you mean and how that applies in these areas?
Yeah, sure. I think definitely. I think most of the AI so far, I think most of them like models what they come out of the box, they are black box models, which means that especially if you're doing a prediction model, you will not see how the model predicted. It will tell you, okay, it's at if you go to a loan or something like most cases like financial institution, they have all these sophisticated AI models or maybe mathematical models, and they will give an output, but it doesn't tell you what features have been implemented, what features have actually affected the decision, right? And obviously, as a company, we are very much on transparency AI, which is obviously explainable AI. What we really do is that whatever decision system has predicted, whether it's a positive sentiment or a neutral sentiment, we'll identify what actually words system has taken for that to make a decision, like a human. If I ask you, for example, why you classify this as a negative, you might have said, okay, these are the words here, like bad, like I hate, or this kind of words. Basically, exactly the same thing we are replicating with our technology, so that you can see any decision maker or maybe any person who doesn't understand AI can able to see the explainability that okay, it's not a black box. You can see okay, this is a negative sentiment because of these words. So this is what we're building to the core of what we do.
Okay, interesting. So as always with these videos, there'll be information about your own company, Haix, underneath, and your LinkedIn profile as well. So people can get in touch with you. And Raj, thank you very much for explaining all of that. And I look forward to continuing on this journey where we're moving into more and more. I think the fascinating thing with AI really is the speed at which it can do stuff with data. And you've definitely given us some very practical insights into that. So
that's great. Thank you very much, Carl. I appreciate you, and thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. If you like the video, if you want to see more of these, do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and we'll be back in touch soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.